Welcome back to Real Word Confessionals, where we ask the questions that are never asked to tell the story seldom told. We have the #1 real estate coach in Tom Ferry joining us today. Tom is one of the only 2 guests we have ever had on the Real Word, and we obviously started the confessional so we could bring in more guests and just amazing people like Tom. I mean, Tom, you're not just a coach, you're an investor in over 70 different companies. Mm-hmm. Is Slack the biggest one? Can I even say that? Or do we need to edit that out now?
Yes, by market cap, it would definitely be the biggest one.
Okay, so we can say that. And you're an investor. You bring people together all the time, masterminds. You're in masterminds of your own. You're a marketing genius, and we are just honored to have you on the confessionals.
I appreciate it. So hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Yes.
Can I still
Got
say?
it right.
Can we say happy birthday also?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
we had it is. I guess it's a month, right? It's a month-long celebration.
Yes,
So
yes.
Thank you.
Happy birthday month.
Thank you.
Big 40. What's it? So I know like it's your show and I'm interviewing you now. What's it like turning 40? How you feeling about that?
I actually feel good about it. So I went in thinking I'd be very disappointed because isn't everyone sort of disappointed on their birthday? But I made sure that my day was planned. Like it was booked.
Yeah.
I had things going on. I distracted my children. Like I did a day. You participated in the day.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good day.
I came in there at the end and celebrated with you. That was fun. I'm of the belief, this might be a confessional for me because this might come off weird. I'm of the belief that women start their prime in their 40s and men start their prime in their 50s. Is that a bad thing to say, or is that on the money? Where do you guys sit on that?
Well, I agree. I mean, I feel like even when I turned 30, it was like, okay, finally, maybe people will start taking me seriously, you know? So hopefully now by 40, it's just like guns blazing for sure.
I agree. I think the 40 to, so I'm 50, I'll be 51. 40 to 50 was a bonkers decade for a lot of reasons. And I think it's going to be the same for you, but I'm so much more excited about 50 to 60. And then a lot of my mentors would say, like literally, I can't wait till you're 80 because that's when you're finally going to know something. And when you hear that from people like Mike Vance and, you know, like all these extraordinary people I've been around, they would all say it's like it's in your 90s. Like that's when you really have like true life experience and maturation. I don't want to get there right away. I'm going to enjoy the journey, but there is something to that, Byron.
So when you get to 60, Tom, you can just say, oh, no, my prime is starting at 60. You just keep pushing it back a decade.
Well, obviously.
100%.
What else are you going to say?
Yeah.
I just dug a hole in the back?
No.
No.
Are you going to keep working till forever, or what's your, before we get into the confessionals, what's your time frame on working at the rate you're working today? How long do you picture yourself doing that?
Well, this is a confessional. This is my last podcast. I'm retiring after this show. Right? Look at Tristan's like, whoa, hey, hold on. So in my 20-year vision, which I'm 6 years into, in 2035, I'm still very active, but it's a different type of active. I'm the kind of person that can't sit still for too long, so I couldn't imagine, nor could my wife probably stand if I was just like that retired guy. Okay, honey, what do you want to do today? She'd be like, you need to get a job and go to work and get the hell out of the house. So, yeah, I think as long as I am having an impact, I will continue to do what I do.
Yeah, and your impact is felt throughout the industry more than anybody. Let's get into the confessionals, TF.
He lights up when he talks about you.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I feel it. He's radiating.
Yeah. Well, because listen,
I'm feeling it.
Yes.
Tom brings that out in people. His ability to connect with so many people. I mean, really deep connections at scale, I'll even say.
Right.
It's unprecedented. Nobody in the industry matches it. But let's get into the confessionals because we want to get some real stories out of you, Tom. What is something right now that currently overwhelms you? What are you waking up in the middle of the night sweating about?
Sweating.
Nothing wakes me up like sweating, but I will tell you, being a parent and having a 19 and 21-year-old, one living with me and one living without me, like that actually brings me a little stress and anxiety. I'm not sure if that's the answer that anybody was looking for, but that's the most real thing for me. I've got a 19-year-old son who's like my little baby who called me a couple days ago and he's like, I'm breaking up with my girlfriend and, could you guys come home? I'm sorry guys. Like I'm a dad, I'm a husband and I'm a dad and then I'm a business person. So that kind of breaks my heart even just talking. I mean, you could see like if you're watching the video, I'm like, actually I get probably noticeably uncomfortable just even thinking about it. So that is tough. The other thing that's interesting, I was talking with my buddy this morning in the gym. We were talking about, I'm segue to give you context. I'm an executive producer for a documentary that's coming out called Anxious Nation. And the premise is how much anxiety is prevalent amongst young people today specifically, right? So thinking about
Were
my 19
you starting that before the pandemic, or?
So
is this...
yeah, we started it, I want to say the October before the pandemic, and we should release it, there's so much involved in the possibility of like, do you release it at Sundance? And if you do, you can't release it anyplace else, right? Do you go to, Cannes? Do you do something like that? Or do you just sell it to Netflix? So we haven't gotten that far yet. But what's interesting is looking at the numbers today, you've got like 40 million people living in the U.S. that suffer from some form of anxiety. And that's all, Nicole, pre-pandemic. So what do we think that number is going to be over the next, I'm convinced there's going to be PTSD coming out of the pandemic. There's going to be people in every walk of life, everywhere in our country, everywhere around the world that are petrified to go outside, petrified to be in a crowd. I think that number could be 120 million. So anyway, back to my point, talking with my buddy this morning in the gym, we're talking about like this issue of anxiety and stress and tension and how that's impacting so many people as we're in the gym, like hitting weights, right? And I'm thinking like, how many people aren't doing something like this? That actually scares me. Yeah. It scares me to think about the number of people that know what to do and don't do it. And Byron, you're kind. You say like, hey, I've had a lot of impact and I got a lot of reach in the space. When I hear that, like, I'm like, yeah, okay, you do anything for several decades and you do it with the right heart and the right mindset. Like, Nicole, you hope you're going to do that. But I can also make the argument for the people that I haven't reached, the people that, that look at me like I'm just, some jerk or, whatever, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like there's that too. So that actually bugs me. That actually will not keep me up at night, but really make me think like, all right, there's, call it 10 million agents in the world, 1.5 million in the US. My database is only like 400,000, right? So I'm really, I've got maybe 1 million followers between all my channels, and there's probably a ton of, like connections. So maybe it's like 500,000, right? But that means I'm not reaching a ton of people, and that kind of pisses me off. You with me? Like, and I ask myself, like, what do I need to do differently? Do I just need to like not be on my own show? Do I need to just, hey Nicole, will you just take over the Tom Ferry show and just do it for me, right? Because I'll listen to you differently. Do you know what I mean? So like that kind of stuff doesn't stress me, but it definitely challenges me.
Sure. Yeah, it keeps you going. I like where you led with the question, started with your boys, and you've done a fantastic job raising them. I would say, off of my experience, and I think it's in today, in the environment that we're living through right now, not the pandemic, just in general, where we are as a society, this time frame, this decade is going to be your biggest challenge as a father. Kids that are from 20 to 30 that are trying to really figure it out and establish themselves in a new world, it's really challenging. And, I shared it on Tom X, the challenges I had during especially those first 5 years, 20 to 25. It's a really, people don't think it's a hard time. They've got a fantastic support system with you and Kathy, obviously, to get through the next 5 or 10 years. I think it keeps getting, like how we started the conversation. When you're a kid, everything's great. And then you have that weird phase, and then everything starts getting better, 30 to 40, and then 40 to 50 is going to be so much better.
You hope.
Yeah, right. But if you're driven and you're doing the things like you just said, Tom, starting your day with intention, going to the gym, all
but at
this
20,
kind of stuff.
Do people even really have that, though?
It's a weird time.
Yeah.
And this will be your biggest challenge as a father, I believe.
Yeah. I thank you for adding more stress and anxiety.
Yeah, more pressure.
No, but you're what's interesting, and I find a lot of solace in knowing that I have other friends of mine that I mentor their kids, they mentor my kids, because you're at. I mean, think about like my boys. They're like Gen 3 of last name Ferry, right? So like it is not uncommon for us to be sitting at dinner with my dad, my older brother, my younger brother, my little sisters, right? And my boys are just, they can't get a freaking word in.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And like, my dad is just the legend. He just puts the gauntlet down. No, bam, this is what we're doing. Here's how, you know what I mean? Like, so I just tell them like, just spend the next 4 or 5 years, figure out who you are, what you're passionate about, try everything. Like just try everything. And when I say it, I think it still falls on deaf ears, truth be told. But like when my buddy Claude says it, or Chad says it, or Kurt Kessel says it, I mean, like then they're like, oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to try everything. So that actually makes me happy, knowing that they are surrounded by a bunch of interesting characters that care enough about them because of, our relationships for a couple decades, that I get to do it for their kids, they get to do it for my kids, and, knock on wood, it's all going to work out.
Well, I love that you're being realistic, though, too. My father gave me until I was 30. He's like, Nicole, like, if you can figure your shit out by the time you're 30, like, I'm proud of you. So, and it took a little bit of the weight off. I mean, I started spitting out kids and I got married, but I did get into real estate when I was 29. And again, it's like, I think it allowed me a little, like, oh, it's okay that I'm not doing what I graduated college with, but I know that I needed that college experience in order to know that I could actually accomplish something, if I put my mind to it. So again, as long as they're willing to sort of reflect on what they're doing, I think being realistic with the time is probably the most important part too for them.
They're super. Are you really competitive? I would imagine you are, but like, are you really, really competitive?
I feel like I'm a little bit more competitive with myself, to the point where it's almost like like you have what is that, like an OCD, like I'm a little competitive.
Both my boys suffer from the same addiction I have, which is like the desire to do more and be more, you know what I mean? And I keep telling them, like, slow down. Like you're like, especially with my younger son, I'm like, dude, you're 19.
Right.
Breathe. I remember he was playing tennis like 5-6 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, and maybe the blessing, the silver lining of the pandemic was him saying to himself, okay, like, you know what, tennis is a bust, I'm going to take some time off, and like watching him like go out and create relationships and hang out with friends that he really didn't get to do for a long time in his life has been pretty meaningful.
And a massive failure in your 20s means nothing in the grand scheme of things. So
for sure.
If they fail a little bit, it'll be a good thing. All right, Tom, you're getting it. You're going deep. That was a really good first confessional. Let's move on.
Well,
to
what
the
I
second
love though
one.
too, because I feel like what overwhelms me is actually like how I'm then able to succeed, which it sounds like is you're using your fault to a benefit too,
100%.
and trying to reach more people. I think
100%.
Yeah.
All right, next confessional. You can go either way, Tom. You can go business or personal. What are you thinking about? So not what overwhelms you. What are you thinking about constantly, most often? What is at the top of your mind right now?
That's hysterical. I literally what was
You
going
can
through my
say
mind was
food.
what was going through my mind is nothing. Nothing.
Well, you think about so many things. You're involved in so many things. I don't even know how you maintain the schedule, but what keeps coming up to the top of your mind over and over and over again?
It's probably the insatiable appetite to keep learning, to keep digging in, to keep finding what is going to be next, what is new, what's a brilliant basic, and then reinforcing that. And then I think that's probably it. Like I am just so fascinated by people. I'm just so I was in the gym this morning, or yesterday morning, and someone that lives in my building walked by, and I'd had dinner with him before, he and his wife, and been inside his apartment. And he's worth several $1 billion. But to hear his backstory, like I literally said to him, I'm like, dude, I want you on my podcast. And he's like, I don't really do those kind of things. I'm like, I know, but I just want it for me. I just want to like have 3 hours to say, okay, you're 12 years old, you start selling coins, and today you have one of the biggest auction companies on the planet. Like, and he's probably 70, and he's in killer shape, right? Great relationship. Like he's got the whole package. How the did he do that? Like, that's what I want to know. So that kind of stuff is probably what's on my mind the most. And I think that's why I'm so obsessed with trying to meet as many people on the planet as I can, right? To figure out, like, what makes Nicole tick? How did she do what she did? Like, what was it? Like, was it her dad putting her and saying, in that situation, saying you got till 30 to figure out, that gave her the freedom to go do all the things that she did? But then what happened at 30? Did she freak out and say, oh my God, now like, do I have it all together? Did I do what I was supposed to do based on my parents' rules? Like I'm just fascinated by all of that shit. If that can I curse on this show? I apologize.
Sure, go for it. Go for
it.
You
know what I mean? For the listeners out there, like just like that's interesting to me. So that's probably the thing I obsess, like whether it's like reading autobiographies or just meeting interesting people. I am obsessed with like the connections and the correlations of what's happening around the world, even as it relates to just housing, right? How has the pandemic affected housing? Think about just that question.
Right.
I'm gonna tell Bill, by the way, that you curse more than I do. That'll maybe get me a little.
Oh yeah.
No, Bill. You know that Bill sent me a text the other day?
over one of your reels,
which was crazy. I rarely.
You didn't
curse,
even
but
say the word. The song did.
Bill Ravis, greatest broker of all time. Shout out to Bill. Really.
Bill is a lead. So that's another example. Like hanging out with Bill and his wife and the boys, and like it's so funny to call them the boys because they're like my age. But like you know, like hanging out with him and saying like, how did you do this? Like what caused you to build a telemarketing center 30 years ago as a real estate broker? Like
let's use him as the example real quick, and with what you're talking about, you as the example, somebody like Bill Ravis as the example. Bill's later in life than you are, but still grinding every single day. You're talking about this thirst for knowledge, always educating yourself. Why do some people take the road that Bill took, where he's going to work all the way till the end? He's going to keep giving back into his business and his boys and his family. You're on the same type of path where you're going to continue to work all the way through the end, continue to learn, impact people. Why do some people build something successful and stop, and then others just go all the way with it, not through the finish line, but create a new finish line?
I got so many thoughts going through my head. I think part of it is, look at like Shaquille O'Neal. Right. Mm-hmm. So when Shaquille got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, right, the great, Jerry Buss, right, the GM, like that whole team. And then like, oh, by the way, we got this like rock star kid, Kobe Bryant, is going to be amazing. The only thing that Shaq thought about was, I just want to win the chip. Right. So when he got his championship, what did he do? He partied the entire summer. He blew off getting a surgery. Like he like from Kobe's perspective, Kobe was furious. Right? Like, I've like worked out with Kobe for a couple of years in the gym, God bless him, and just an extraordinary human being. Contrast Shaq, who, by the way, is one of the greatest all-time basketball players ever on the planet, right?
Of course.
But his goal was win the chip. Kobe's goal was be the greatest of all time. Mm-hmm. I look at a lot of people when they start their business and they say, God, if I can just get to $1 million in revenue, where Bill Ravis was like, I'm going to build a legacy company that completely transforms my entire family. My kids, my grandkids, their kids, their kids. Like, he's thinking Rockefeller, he's thinking Kennedy's, and, Shaq, and by the way, Shaq is like wildly successful and totally bonkers. And I'm actually trying to get him on my podcast. We whiffed that opportunity, and I'm looking at Tristan like, we have to make that happen. But I think that's a good example. Like, so think about it in the real estate world. So many people aspire to a number, and then they get to the number and they're like, oh, that's all there was? Okay, well, I got there. I got the plaque. I got the trophy. I made it to the top 10. I made it to the top 1,000, whatever it is, where the people like Bill, I think the people like all of us, like, we see something greater. And by the way, there's no right or wrong. Like, both are wildly successful. Right. One just recognizes that they're playing a much longer game, and that's why those people dominate. And I think of like, in our industry, people like Dave Liniger, who I've known forever, right, who built up that company. I think about my buddy Michael Polzer, who's coming to town. We're going to race cars this weekend. His family, they own 1/3 of the globe as the master franchise for RE/MAX, right? So way back in the day, they had the foresight to say, let's buy all of Ontario Mid-Atlantic, let's buy all the New Englands, let's buy a bunch of other states in the U.S., and then let's go buy all of Europe, including like somehow Israel. I think the guys at LLC maybe didn't have a map. I'm not sure. Sorry, my friends at LLC, but just saying, right? But they knew that was going to be a 25 to 30 year journey. When they did that, their commitment was, we're going to completely transform how homes are sold throughout Europe. So just like for context, my buddy Michael, when he took over Europe, there was like 8,000 agents. There's 31,000 agents now in RE/MAX throughout Europe. Like, that's bonkers. Like, they have completely changed how sales are done. And he says, look, I'm just getting started, because he's like 55 and his son Max, right, is like 22 and already learning the family business to take it to a whole new level. Like, I think that's the difference.
Well, go ahead.
Well, just because it ties into the Kobe Shaq. I just saw a clip where Shaquille O'Neal, obviously an old clip, was interviewing Kobe. And he asked Kobe where he got his drive from, his killer instinct. Yeah. And Kobe went back to his youth. He went back to the time he spent in Italy. And he said, when people were excluding me I didn't speak the language. I felt like an outsider because I had just moved there. And the kids, you know, his peers on the basketball court were just naturally excluding him. His time to like get back at them, so to speak, was to just dominate them on the basketball court. And his drive started back in those early days.
Yes.
If you dig into Bill Ravis's, you know, which I'm sure you have, Tom, you know, he's got his story in a book now. You dig into his past. It started when he was a kid growing up on the Bridgeport Fairfield line in Connecticut. Was it the same for you? Did this drive start from your youth, somewhere, you know, growing up?
My earliest memory of that would be when I remember sitting sort of Chaucer Lane, Huntington Beach, California. My brother was sitting in the corner. My mom was on the phone. I was sitting on the bed, and she hung up and said, "Your dad's left us." Right? Like that was like the moment they finally decided to separate. But the way she said it had such an impact on me. Like, your dad left us. Like, what, to a 6-year-old, like, what does that mean? And I remember watching my older brother kind of, you know, have his emotional reaction. And I actually got like it's the first time I've hired a therapist many times to like work on these kinds of things. I got super cold and very numb. And said to my mom, like, okay, well, what do you need me to do? How can I help? And like, I kind of knew then I would be in a position of leadership, because in moments of stress and tension, I get extremely focused, and like this cold is the only word I can use to describe it. And I probably need a better way, because it's not like cold-hearted in any way, shape, or form. I was there to serve my mom and to take care of my little brother and my little sister and my older brother. But it was just this ice in my veins. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure everybody's okay. And I can look over the course of my career of 31 years. When I was working at a freaking grocery store, working midnight to night, I had the same kind of ice in my vein mentality to my crew is going to get their stuff done faster. We're going to get raises and promotions faster than anybody else. Like, that's just, I actually go back to like that moment when I was 6. I think that was the first time I recognized it. I didn't have a bad childhood. My parents were separated. My dad was super cool. He took us to a Kiss concert when I was like 9 years old. 1979 at the Forum, the last year. It was the last time Kiss performed, the four of them together. And I actually sat next to Gene Simmons flying to Toronto one day. And I'm like, dude, I was at the show at the Forum. I'm like, sorry, man, I had Paul Stanley makeup on. Like, we actually laughed about it for a couple hours. It was super rad. Like, so it wasn't like a bad childhood, but that moment, I think, was sort of a defining moment of my life. And then, you know, over time, you can look back and say other moments, 9/11, you know, the decision to leave my family business and start my own business. All these things, Nicole, like, I think helped further.
March 2020.
Well,
March 2020 for sure.
Yeah, I think, but again, you were talking about before about loving to meet people and understand them. I think that probably is what defines people from going from one path to the other. Because again, you're talking about Shaq, like wanting that one thing, where I think that you, Byron, myself, like obviously Kobe, I'm sure Shaq too. I mean, I don't know him personally, but like, there's so much in your day that you're doing and enjoying and wanting to get better at, not necessarily in 15 years. So, you know, you obviously have a 20-year goal, but that 20-year goal you could blow it out of the water if you're really concentrating a little bit more on how can your day go better, and how can I enjoy it, and how can I, you know, suck as much out of my day as possible. So I think that probably has a little bit to do with it too. You know, I mean, obviously you had pivotal moments in your life, but now you're thinking about how can I make today better for my mom? And then obviously that then, you know, multiplies into the next day of how can I make it better today than yesterday. So
Compound effect for sure.
Have to.
For sure. The book The Slight Edge. And anybody out there, if you've not read the book The Slight Edge, you should download the unabridged version and listen to Jeff Olson describe it. Because Nicole, it's exactly what you're talking about. Like that, just day over day. You know what's interesting though? I'm actually I'm enjoying, like yesterday I took today's one. No, so Monday I took the day off, and I just gave myself permission to just like screw around. Like I, you know, took my son, we went to breakfast. I don't even like breakfast, but I love time with my son, right? So we go to breakfast, and then I'm like, hey man, you want to go check out the new office building? Let's go to this place. They sell some motorcycles. We just like screwed around and did nothing. And in the back of my mind, like, yes, there's like guilt, like, oh my God, it's Monday. And, like there's a million calls I could be making, but I gave myself permission just to kind of screw around. And it was pretty liberating. It was pretty liberating. I mean, like we all go on vacations and that kind of stuff, but my brain has a tendency to go, like it's kind of always going. You with me? So like to I think back to like the great Stuart Wilde, who was like, like you've got to figure out a hack to get your brain to slow down. Because sometimes if you don't get to that slow down space, you don't really see the joy and the beauty and the ecstasy of life because you're just racing through it all the time.
Right.
So like literally just walking through the park, which is right in front of my apartment, like just walking through and just noticing the freaking trees and just, watching the wind and you know what I mean? Like just having these like quiet little moments. It was pretty rad.
It's amazing that you brought that up. It's a perfect segue into the third confessional. I don't think people looking at Tom Ferry, whether they're following you on Instagram or the Tom Ferry show on YouTube or if they've been to an event or if they're a coaching client, I don't think many people realize the other side of TF, that you do take a day here and there to just say, you know what, I'm going to give myself permission to just chill. And that is that's relatable to a lot of people. And so I don't think a lot of people even realize that you have faults because it looks like you're this amazing superhero in the real estate industry. So obviously everybody has faults. Pick a fault, and how has that fault hindered you from having even more success?
God, I wish my wife was here because she
would name them all.
She would just move me out of the way and say, well, I have a list. The running joke of our 27, almost 28 years of marriage is she's like, I can't wait to write my book.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, baby, just write it. Let's publish it. Faults. Look, I have just as many as everybody else. I would say the one that has hindered me the most. Oh, confessions. I feel like, right. For the people that are watching the video, it's like going old school Catholic. I would say it is knowing that it was time to move someone on and waiting too long to do it. Right. Like as an executive, I was actually just in this conversation with a buddy of mine. We were talking about the evolution of being an executive, and it would be best described as intentional non-doing. Like when you feel like your day isn't packed and you don't have as much impact, you've probably become a great executive. You with me? So I know, like I can see in my own business and in my own businesses and other companies I've invested in where it was just so obvious, like, okay, such and such has gone as far as they're going to go. They've been with me for, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Like it's hard to say to that person, okay, like, hey, it's been a great run, but I think it's time for you to do something else. Do you know what I mean? Like we talked about in the mastermind, like there is so much ease to go towards what's comfortable versus what in your gut is right. And I think that's hard. Like Byron, like I care a lot for people and I see in them what in many cases they can't. The hard part is when I've had someone like that in my life and they work with me and I see like their passion starting to dwindle and we try all the things to light them back up again and they can't get relit. Like the hard part is just like pulling them aside and saying, all right, man, it's time. So like, I know in my career, there was moments when I should have terminated somebody. I should have, had a deeper, more honest conversation about, look, we've gone as far as we can go together. It's been great. Like it's time. So that part's hard for me. Cause I do like, how do I say it? Like, I don't want to say I hang on to relationships, but I hang on to people. Like, like I, this is going to sound stupid or campy for some of you, but like I want so badly for the people that I love and respect, my closest inner circle, to do well, that sometimes I probably hold them back. You know what I mean? Like the best thing I could do is like fire somebody and say, now go be great. Go have a Lee Iacocca moment. You know what I mean?
Did you like get into a situation where you start changing roles, starting to like create roles for certain individuals to like just keep them because you want to keep them around? You like the person. Oh no, it's worse. How about just isolate them and keep paying them?
Yeah.
Just keep paying. Yeah. No.
That was a fucking confession right there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Excuse my French, sorry, but like, we're amongst friends. But like that, listen, for the person that's listening right now, like I have, 170 business coaches in like 6 or 7 countries. I've got 165 FTEs in California. I've got 4 in Seattle. I've got another 30, I think, in Texas. And when you start growing an organization like this, so much of it is around trust, right? Trusting that it's not just, like I have to set the standard inside the organization. Like it's like this better rule, like at Google, where they're like, is that the best person we have in the role? Yes or no? Like that's a hard conversation. Is this the best person in my organization, or is it time for them to move on? Like, are we better off without that person and then searching for, 3 to 6 months to bring in that next best person? Is that a better move than keeping that person there? Those are tough decisions. So imagine if you're just an agent with like 2 buyer's agents and an assistant, and one of them, 25% of your org is basically an energy sucking vampire. You're screwed.
Or if you're married to that, or
yes.
or you have a friend that you feel like you've been a friend with forever, and you're just, I think that can relate in many other situations besides obviously just business too.
Right.
Are
Right.
you, how's it hindering your whole life?
Right.
Yeah.
It across the board. Like it's interesting. Like I go back to one of my coaches, Teresa Jabor, would always say to me, like, you got to take 100% responsibility for everything, even though like the world's kind of like in this, especially like in marriages, 50-50, which by the way, like 50% of all marriages fail, 60% in California, and like 78% in my town of Newport Beach. Think about that. Like you're walking down the aisle and you're like, we should just lease this deal. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like, we both need to sign prenups because this ain't working out, right?
That's your old town, so that's one way.
My
to
old
get the
town.
odds.
I don't even know the number. Tristan, will you Google the divorce rate in Dallas?
It's got to be better than
super
Newport
curious.
Beach.
I hope so. And no knock. Like I have a bunch of my closest friends in Newport. We've all been married for 20 plus years. Like we're like, I think we're gonna start getting trophies and like recognition from like, the city council. Like keep up the good work.
I don't know. It sounds like maybe the wives need the trophies.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
60%, by the way. Oh,
In Dallas?
No. 6% divorce rate in Dallas? No way.
Not 6. That can't be
No
true.
way. That can't be. Like 50% is the national average.
How many people are actually married then in Dallas?
if it's
Maybe
only-
no one's getting
that would be my
married.
next question. No one got married in Dallas.
If it's 6%, everybody is now going to relocate to Dallas.
Maybe.
If
Right.
their
Right.
marriage is in question. All right, so let's go business side here. Business confessional. A business trend, Tom, that you said would go one way. You were emphatic that it would go a certain way, and it went the complete opposite direction. Could be a prediction or a business trend.
It's interesting because I was reflecting on this a couple of days ago. So the 2015, when I came out at the summit and said, teams are going to rule the world. I think we were right on with that one.
Yes, we were.
Teams are going to sell at a rapid pace. So I would say teams haven't sold at a rapid pace at the level that I thought they would. But then if you look at the acquisition other strategy where you didn't get an LLC, but you were paid or given stock by Compass or any one of these other companies, right? There's no doubt, like all those teams did get acquired. They just didn't actually give up their asset. They didn't give up, Nicole, their LLC, but they were paid to move, right? So it was you were
half right.
I was off, but I felt close.
They sold for years at a time, 3-4 years at a time. So they sold 3 or 4 years of their business instead of selling the whole thing. And then, to your point, you could argue that, well, I guess this would be different. People that are, and you keep seeing it. There was just another big team this week that went to EXP. They're almost forfeiting their business model to just completely merge into. That wasn't really happening in 2015 and to the scale that it is now.
For sure. I think the one that I really missed when I reflect back on those 6 trends was I was sure as all get up that the hedge funds and the institutional buyers that were buying hundreds of thousands of SFRs in like 8, 9, 10, 11, that they would have then flipped their money. And instead they were like, we bought so low, the appreciation's so high, the rents are so great. Screw it. I was forecasting like 17, 18 that these companies would just go, here's 100,000 SFRs, just put them on the market and sell it. And none of that happened.
And with us sitting at such low inventory, why aren't they doing it now?
you know what? Here's how I look at it. Reoccurring revenue businesses trade at high multiples.
Yeah.
So if I have 100,000 assets and my debt to equity ratio is bonkers, which they're all off the charts. In many cases, they bought those things all cash, and maybe they leveraged some of it. The rents are so great. That's like a nice, safe, easy 10% return for like the next 500 years.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I get it. I wish they didn't. I wish they would have sold them.
You can get rich selling real estate, but you can get wealthy keeping it.
I would argue you can make money selling real estate. You get wealthy owning real estate.
Owning it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So Tom, maybe this is probably.
Well, he is a wizard.
Right.
So, I mean.
This is the most true for Tom of any guest, and probably in the past and well into the future. Tom Ferry, you are the wizard of real estate. That sounded awesome. I want you to clip that out, Bobby.
Yeah.
Tom Ferry, you are the wizard of real estate. One thing you would change in the industry right now today?
I actually just watched the original Harry Potter with my
Yeah, I was
93-year-old
going to say,
mother-in-law
I feel
the
like
other
we need
day.
like a wand. We need a hat.
I was like going full Dumbledore. I was like,
Yes.
wow. So what was the question though? Like what would I change?
So you've got the wand. What's one thing in the industry you would change immediately?
The other 500,000 agents would be following you.
Well,
Yeah, that would be but that would be
that's
selfish.
an impact to Tom.
Yeah.
An impact to the industry that would better the industry. You know, there's, you know, a lot of different things people argue back and forth that are right or wrong with the residential real estate industry. What's one that you would change if you've got one wish, one, you know, swoop of the wand?
It's okay, so I'm actually taking this very seriously. There's a lot of things that are going through my head. One immediate thought, and I don't know if this would be my one thing. Like one thing. God, only one. You got to play like the domino game. You got to figure out what are all the things I want to have happen, but what's that first domino that has everything else go down?
It's a great way to look at it, because there are, you know, collateral impacts when you change one thing, something else. Absolutely.
Correct. It's the unintended consequences that, you know, as a chess player in business, like that's always what I'm thinking about. Okay, we make this move, but in 18 months, how is this going to screw us over?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because most people, like, we just, oh, that's a good idea. Let's go after it. Like, I'm always unintended consequences. What are the unintended consequences? Okay, so I think I'm going to take I'll just do a safe one, because I actually really want to explore this and play around with it myself. I think the safest one is I would argue for tougher licensing requirements on a national level, because it's state by state, and you know, some states it's like 4 hours, and some states it's like, you know, 140 hours, and I'm making up the 4, but like it's less and more. And I would also say with that, there would also have to be a standard in place. I don't know if I would go full employee model. Though there's some merit around that. I think that could further institutionalize the industry, but also squash a lot of the extraordinary entrepreneurs. So I would kill that one. Instead, I would say there's got to be a standard in place. Like, you know, if you can't do, you know, 18 transactions a year, you can't play.
Yeah.
Right. Something like that. And by the way, for the person listening.
And so Nicole we talk about standards all the time, right? Nicole just gave a sigh, like, "Well, what?" And I know where she's going to go.
No, I wasn't. I was saying boom. Like,
but the argument is, okay, what if you get to 17 and you had a really tough year?
Oh no, I wasn't giving any excuse. I think I think it's smart. I mean, we were talking even about Florida. Like you were, you know, but after you get your license, you have to do another 60 hours.
You got to do another 60 hours. Well, 60 for broker, 45 post licensing.
But in Connecticut,
they require more.
It's
than,
just.
than
I mean, I only needed 30. I mean, they upped it now to 60, but
yeah.
And you can just continuing. No, I wasn't giving any excuses.
Okay.
I think that it's.
But you know the excuses are going to flow. Say the number's 18. Let's just pick an
I'm
arbitrary
glad that you
number.
went with units though and not dollar value, because obviously that's
definitely
much
units.
more difficult.
Yeah, because exactly.
So just for clarification for people listening, like I'm not dogging somebody that is part-time. You could be part-time and sell 18 homes a year. I'm only thinking about the consumer.
Right.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
One that sells a house a year provides a different experience from the two of you and this incredible business that you built. Right. So I think the consumer always and forever deserves, and now we're seeing more so demands a better quality experience in something that they only do once a decade. So I think about like my buddy who like he's a brain mechanic, aka a brain surgeon, right? So he does like 15 brain surgeries a week. Nicole, think about like 15 brain. You know what that's like? That's like Tim Smith going on 15 listing appointments a week, right? Yeah. So if you had to have a surgery, if it was a non-elective surgery and it was on your child, who do you want to do it?
Right.
The person that does it once a year?
No.
Or the person that does it 15 times a week?
Right.
Right. And I argue on behalf of the consumer that, you know, yes, there are some amazing agents that sell 5 houses a year because when they finally get one, like they go all in and they do everything themselves. They do whatever it takes. And I'm not saying that those people aren't wonderful. I'm just saying that they should sell more. I was listening to Stephen A. the other day. We're talking about I'm a big Lakers fan. And talking about like, oh, well, this guy, the Denver Nuggets, oh, he's, shooting, or no, it was the Clippers. He's shooting at 50% of the line, right, from free throws, or excuse me, from 3-pointers. And Stephen A's argument was, well, then the guy should shoot more. Why is he only getting like 6 shots a game? Right. Like if he's at 50%, you should be shooting 20 times in a game.
Do more
with me?
Of what's
and
working.
That's my argument for the person that's selling 5 homes a year who does it really well. Like you're doing a disservice to like 13 more people. Like you're really good at what you do, scale up. Like, so that would be, I think it'd be licensing / standards. And I think there'd be some unintended consequences. There'd be some businesses that probably crumble because they're predicated on new agents that sell a house now and then because their mortgage and title and escrow and all that stuff is really the sort of mechanism that they make profitability. But I would argue like that's not a consumer benefit.
And that would have a ripple effect because now NAR can't have, they just can't take bodies on, right? They can't just body pack the association, which is essentially what they do because you've just created a standard which would essentially eliminate dead weight. So I love your answer there. You mentioned Tim Smith, and Nicole's got some like quick rocket round questions. We're just going to, fire a whole bunch
like
of
this or that type.
Yeah, this or that. Just, quick questions. You got to answer them super quick. Before we get that, you mentioned Tim Smith. We covered Tim Smith.
Oh, he was our marketeer.
We covered him this past week on the Real Word podcast. Go check that out. But we've covered him in the past, and he was the marketeer when he put out that I just want to get your opinion on it. Yeah. And I know that you and Tim are great friends, and you're not going to speak out of turn here, but it was on Inman Coast to Coast. Like everybody had a comment about that video he put out during the pandemic, where it was very controversial. The listing video. Do you know the one I'm talking about? Where
which one? They're all controversial.
So
Right.
he had given. So the problem here was that what had gone viral was this man's vision
of the pandemic
of what the home of what the home would be if he was sort of the man of the house.
He was daydreaming his vision of quarantine.
His wife had a twin, and whoops.
Everybody was commenting on this because Brad Inman posted it, and he started this whole conversation.
There was a woman.
I know the video.
And there was a lot of women commenting, and I asked my daughter, and she was appalled. And
well, but again, but they hadn't seen the woman version.
They had not seen the first. He came out with the female version before that, and it wasn't as risque as
it
female
wasn't risque
version
at all.
for sure.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on really pushing the line like Tim Smith does in his listing videos? He does a great job. We love him, but your thoughts?
How many comments and how many people were talking about it?
Oh, I think that was his most viewed listing video.
Yeah.
And definitely most comments.
Yeah. Here's my response.
Yeah.
Congratulations. The great Johnny Carson once said, "All press is good press." Mm-hmm. And if nobody's talking about you, then no one is talking about you.
The flip side, his market. Did it hurt him at all with some really people that just didn't like the video? I imagine it didn't, but that market better than we do, Newport Beach. Did it hurt him at all?
No. Okay, so for the people that are listening, so Tim has been a personal client of mine for going on 13 years. And I can remember I was standing on my back porch, Byron, you've been there, like looking over the bay, and I'm on the phone with him, and I'm like, look, if you don't start doing videos, someone else in this market is going to start doing videos, and they are going to be the king of this town in a decade. I can remember that conversation as clear as this "that's banana" sign in front of me. And I remember him saying, But I just, like, and he was like probably everybody else that is like knew that they should do it, but struggled with it. He finally starts. And I think it was the video from the brokers in Sydney, Australia, with the helicopters and the girl tied up in the lingerie. Do you guys remember that legendary video?
I
remember sending him that one and saying, this is probably the standard. And he, Tim is married. He's got a daughter. He's got a son. They're like 7 and 5, right? Like he is for the people that don't know him, like whatever judgment you have, you're dead wrong. Mm-hmm. That guy is the salt of the earth. He is such a good human being. It's almost scary. And he understands if nobody's talking about you, then nobody's talking about you. Tim Smith Tim has probably been, I'll get the exact number because I'm talking to him in about an hour. He has probably been on, I'm going to say mid 70s listing appointments year to date. And today is April 6th, right? Or 7th or whatever it is. And think about it. He'll go on 300 high-end luxury I trust you calls. People say to him, what is the film you're going to shoot for my house?
Right.
When he listed, my home is for sale with him right now. He said, I'm going to shoot the craziest video that was his listing presentation. I'm so excited to talk about the video I'm going to shoot. My wife's like, can you talk about price yet? Oh, we'll get to price later. Let's talk about the video. So I don't know if I'm answering this question properly. The answer is he's done exactly what he's supposed to do. 81% of consumers are making their decision based on the product or service that they're acquiring today, based on the videos that they're watching. People that love Tim's videos call him and say, come list my house. And based on the data, there's way more people doing that than there are people that are not calling or negative commenting or shaming or whatever else. Who cares? The Duffy video got more controversy, right? And that represented only two $45 million buyers that basically saw the video and said, oh my God, I got to have this house. Like, think about that.
Well, that's all that matters, right? At the end of the day is selling the house. Yeah. He's selling homes. Yeah.
And by the way, Nicole, in town, I can't think of the restaurant. I've been there so many times. I'm going to be bothered by this, but they actually have a drink called Teach Me How to Duffy.
Oh, really?
Like that video, the owners of that house, a week after that video was released, the wife was there. And a bunch of drunk people in Duffy boats came up to the house and started screaming the song to the house. Like, when was the last time that happened for the person that's listening on your listing video?
Right.
There you go.
Think about it.
That's awesome.
Like, that's the job of marketing, is to be noticed and to find your tribe.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He has found his tribe, and his tribe is enormous, and they're billionaires, and they're high end, and I don't know what he did, $703 million in sales last year. So it's working.
Love it. Thanks for sharing. I don't think Tim would mind because you certainly put him in a good light there. So,
all right, you ready?
Yeah, this or that.
Yes.
Super
yes
quick.
Or no.
Ready?
However you answer him.
Phone call or text?
Yes.
Facebook or Instagram?
Facebook for ads, Insta for connections and sliding into people's DMs.
You're great at that, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
Yes. iOS or Android?
Apple all the way.
Yeah. Work hard or play hard?
Yes.
Nice car or nice home?
Both.
Passenger or driver?
Always driving.
Money or
actually not always. I had when I go to the airport, someone drives me.
Drives you, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So big shout out to
Jose.
Jose.
Well, that's often
Thank you. I love you.
too,
But
right?
you prefer to be the driver, it sounds like.
I enjoy driving. So driving.
Yeah. Money or free time?
Yes.
All right, your toilet paper, over or under? Don't answer it wrong.
Toilet paper over or under?
Yes.
He's never paid attention.
What? How do you not?
Is this like pandemic
Over.
stuff? Like, are we going into a shortage again?
No, no. Like, is your roll? Are you pulling it from over, or are you pulling it from under?
Oh, I don't know. Like, whatever way it is.
Yeah. Iced coffee or hot coffee?
Warm.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. TV or book?
Both.
Jeepers Creeper. I feel like all right. We're done. All of
That's
them.
it?
Are
No,
both.
because but in fairness, like I can't read the Laker game.
Right.
You with me? So
Okay.
I don't watch a lot of TV.
Right.
But when I do, it's probably going to be a live sporting event.
Okay. So working alone or working on a team?
1,000,000% team.
Yeah. Morning or evening?
Yes.
Okay. Chocolate or vanilla?
Probably more chocolate.
Family or friends?
Yes.
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
And then Byron and I do a lobster roll review. Do you ever have lobster rolls? Do you prefer it with mayonnaise or with butter?
I have only had a lobster I take that back. Nantucket, I had a couple lobster rolls. I don't remember. I think it was butter, and it was disgusting.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Wow is right.
Yeah. You had one at which we reviewed, Ford's in No Ink. I think Josh Rubin sent you over there.
Yes, that's right. Where was that? Is that in Connecticut?
That is Connecticut.
That's Connecticut. That's just outside of Mystic.
Yeah.
Just outside of Mystic.
That's right. Yeah, and I just remember thinking, too much butter, that's gross. I need to wash my hands.
Wow.
Yeah, have you ever had one with mayonnaise?
In fairness,
that's even grosser, the mayonnaise.
In fairness, I'm not a big lobster fan.
Okay.
Right? So maybe should have just, started there. Like if you would have said your wife's homemade raviolis or Jimmy's lasagna in town here in Dallas, I'd be like, my wife's homemade raviolis.
Okay.
Hands down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was it.
Even if the real answer is Jimmy's.
Appreciate you
gotta
participating.
Go with Kathy's ravioli.
Yeah. Hey guys, this was super interesting, and I like the format. When I was told confessional, I literally was like 8 again, and I was like sitting inside a church thinking, "Oh God, what do I have to say?"
Well,
right. So
I mean,
this was actually kind of fun.
Yeah, the show's the Real Word, and obviously our inspiration, both kind of consumed a lot of content in the '90s, was the Real World,
right,
on MTV,
right.
and they used to sit in those rooms, remember?
Yeah,
and they would
sort of
they'd have those
their
confess,
day,
I have a crush on this one, or whatever the heck they were talking about. But yeah, more of that than church for this. But we appreciate you going deep and really exploring some questions that I don't think people have gotten answers to from you in the past.
I appreciate the different kinds of questions. But I want to say before we're done, I'm super proud of the two of you. My podcast today was on the power of video, and it was just Tristan and I just kind of, hamming it up and talking about data and stats and all this stuff. And it really got me thinking of, there's just been a few people that really have gotten it, right? And the two of you really got it. And, I was on your YouTube channels, right? Your multiple channels, looking around, and I'm like, they have no idea how insanely great this is going to be in a decade. Because it's good for you now, but in a decade, it's going to be bonkers. So I just want to congratulate the two of you for being who you are, doing what you're doing, taking the time out of your incredibly busy schedules to create all this content for others, and also documenting your life and your legacy. So just hey, mad respect.
I'll make sure I let Katie know how proud you are of her.
By the way, who is Katie? That is still Nicole. Like, I was so embarrassed the other day. I don't even know if we edited it out because I totally screwed up.
Oh, Byron loved it.
No.
He did.
I didn't tell you the story.
I was so embarrassed.
It was because you remembered his name.
Well, I didn't tell you the story that he did it again recently.
Oh, did he?
Like
it just happened.
Like a couple of weeks ago. I didn't tell her that because she had her 40th come out. A little inside joke for people listening. We were at Mohegan Sun, I believe, for William Ravis event. Was that where it happened?
No, we were. I think it was our 100th episode, and
we asked you to send in.
We were asking everyone to send in videos.
That's right.
That's
what it was.
What they liked about the show or what have you.
You got it.
And you were congratulating Byron and Katie on this.
Nicole's like, Katie, am I being replaced in 101? Yeah, and so that's where it's kind of started. Where and listen, for everybody listening, Tom, you remember people's names better than anybody I've ever met in my life. So it's just unfortunate, Nicole, that you have to be the one.
It's fine.
I mean, you remember 170 coaches' names. You have thousands of coaching clients. You remember everybody's names at a ridiculous level. It's just, it's just this one.
He loves it.
You know what happens? It's like
he's popping popcorn and eating it right now, loving it.
This is great.
I'm dying. If you're only listening, I am like beat red right now. This is like the best confessional. This should have been the opening of the show. Like, Tom Ferry is a dumbass, and he cannot.
No,
you're
Nicole. But you know what's great? Like I have facial recognition is probably my great. I'll see somebody's face and I'll be like, I know her.
I know. I'm the same way. I'm
Here's the
horrible with
connection.
names.
This is where we met. And then every now and then, and you're not the only one, every now and then I label the wrong name, and it just haunts me.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me up. There's your first question.
There it is.
That's what keeps me up at night.
Well, you're very good. And Tristan can attest because he's on the road with you so often that
yes,
it's ridiculous how many names you do remember. All right. If you haven't, I'm sure maybe you have, but I don't know. According to Tom, he's still missing millions of agents connections. If you haven't connected with Tom, go follow him. Go to tomferry.com. Just cruise around, find all his social platforms. You can't miss him. Dig into some of his content. If you're in the real estate space or mindset space for any reason, or any relation rather at all, you're going to want to do it. Go over to tomferry.com. TF, we love you, man.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you doing this for us. And this is going to make an impact on so many people. I think you shared a lot of valuable information.
Look, Bill, Katie, I just want to say thanks. I couldn't help it. Okay, you guys, lots of love. Thanks so much. And everybody out there listening, wishing you a safe, resilient, awesome 2021. See you guys soon.
Thank you.